Thank you for joining me again. I am just going to go ahead and do a double crochet tutorial, and then we're going to talk about changing rows with double crochet, because once we get to this point is where people start seeing a lot of problems with their work growing on the ends or shrinking, like leaving out stitches or increasing stitches. Sometimes people think they have tension problems because something gets bigger and smaller. And some people do have tension problems, but for most people it's about increasing or decreasing without meaning to. So let's get started. Here we have 3 chains, and the height of a double crochet is 3 chains. So what we do is treat those 3 chains as 1 stitch, and I'll show you what I mean on our way back. So to start from a chain, for a double crochet, we would do yarn over, we would go into the 4th chain from the hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the remaining 2 loops on the hook. So from here we yarn over and we'll go into the next stitch. Now notice how the stitch at the base of this double crochet we just did, it's more open. See that? We put a stitch there. I just want you to get used to seeing that. So the next stitch would go into this one right here underneath my thumb. So we yarn over, we go in here, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So we have a stitch where there's that hole right there, and the next one laying flat is the next stitch we go into. Yarn over, go into the chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, go into the next one, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the remaining 2. So from here we yarn over, we go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the remaining 2. So there is a little row of double crochets. Now, to do another row with double crochet on top of it, we would do 1, 2, 3. That's the height of a double crochet, and it will count as our first double crochet. So you're not going into the first stitch, which is right here, you're going 1 stitch in. Okay, so the last stitch was this one, and this is the second stitch. Since our 3 chains count as a stitch, we're going to that second stitch. Yarn over, go into that second stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Then from here we just go into each stitch across. Yarn over, go into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now we have 1 more stitch. Remember how I said the original chain counts as a stitch? You don't want to forget it, because if you forget going into that chain each time, each row you'll be decreasing by 1. So you eventually have a triangle. So we had 6 stitches to start with. The chain 3 counts as a stitch, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then here is the top of the chain from the row before. So we go into the top of that chain, then we yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So there we have 2 rows of 6. To start again, 1, 2, 3, because that's the height of our double crochet, and since it counts as our first stitch, you're not going to the first stitch, you start in the second. So I think this is probably pretty monotonous now, and you get the idea. We're going to get to the end of the row here. So the most common mistake people make when beginning crochet is leaving out the chains, not being able to tell it's a stitch, and so they decrease. The other thing people do is I want you to look at the top of the stitch here. The top of the stitch looks like our chain when you chain, and that's what the top of the stitch looks like for every crochet stitch. Now when we go into them, we are going in on the back side because we have flipped over. But you can still see the chain if you tilt it towards yourself, if you are confused about where the stitch is. Now you don't want to go way down here. There are certain patterns that will allow you to do things like go behind or work from behind, like this. That would be front post and back post. We'll get into that later. But unless otherwise stated, you're always going to be working into the stitches themselves. So here is the stitches are these little tiny areas back in here, and then the top of your chain is right here from the row below. So you don't want to leave out that chain because that counts as a stitch. That's why that's there. Double crochet and taller will always have the chain that comes up the side count as a stitch. And once you know that and you understand why it does that, then it's a lot easier to start writing your own patterns, and you understand when following a pattern why they're doing it the way they do it. So there's that. And then the other thing people will do that will mess up the edges. Okay, so I just went into the chain, and then I'm going to build 3. I'm going to show you the other thing people do that messes up tension. And it is possible that you have a piece that instead of being square, it will go at an angle. And what happens often with that is that people will do the chain 3 because it says so in a pattern, but when they go to do the first stitch, they do it in the base of the last stitch done. So what happens is the chain and this are now 2 stitches. So when you go across, instead of having 6 stitches, this row you'd have 7 stitches. If you did it again on the other side when you come back, it would be 8 stitches, and so on and so on and so on. So I wanted you to be aware of that, just because that helps troubleshoot some of the things that you have going on. And we'll be doing some more tutorials soon. Thanks.